The morning sun rose like liquid gold over the private airfield outside Los Angeles, its rays glinting off the polished silver wings of a jet so sleek it looked more like a piece of art than a machine. Standing beside it, in his custom Italian suit and emotionless composure, was Alexander Cole, a self-made billionaire whose empire stretched from aviation to artificial intelligence. To the world, he was the embodiment of success, powerful, brilliant, untouchable, but inside, he was a man who had long forgotten how to feel. His assistants moved like shadows around him, handling schedules, checking engines, rehearsing pleasantries for the journalists arriving to cover his humanitarian aviation scholarship event, a publicity stunt more than an act of kindness. Alexander never cared about charity, he cared about headlines. The event was meant to showcase his new fleet of luxury jets and his so-called commitment to youth empowerment. But in truth, the only thing he was committed to was control. As the cameras began to flash and the microphones turned toward him, he straightened his tie and smiled the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He didn't yet know that his entire life was about to change because of one small, fearless girl who had never flown before, and who would soon teach him how to fly in a way no jet ever could. Among the crowd gathered behind the security barricade stood Aaliyah Carter, a 12-year-old black girl from South Central Los Angeles, wearing scuffed sneakers, a faded denim jacket, and hope brighter than the sky itself. Her mother had passed away 2 years earlier from an illness that took everything they owned. Her father was a name she'd never known. Aaliyah lived in a foster home now, where dreams usually went to die, but she refused to let hers go. She wanted to be a pilot. She loved the idea of controlling the sky, of going anywhere, of rising above the noise and pain below. Every night she'd look at planes passing overhead and whisper, "One day, I'll fly one of you." So when she heard about the billionaire who was showcasing new jets at the airfield, she sneaked onto the grounds, clutching a crumpled drawing she had made of a jet with the words, "Someday, I'll fly this." She had no invitation, no credentials, only courage. When she reached the barrier, she called out to him, her voice trembling but firm. "Mr. Cole, I want to fly one of your jets." The crowd laughed. Cameras turned. Security tensed. Alexander's jaw tightened. He hated unscripted moments. He turned toward her, a small, thin girl with untamed curls and eyes so full of determination they almost startled him. "You want to fly one of my jets?" he said, a hint of mockery curling his lips. The reporters chuckled with him. "Do you even know how to start one?" She hesitated, then held up her drawing like a trophy. "Not yet," she said, "but I know I can learn." The laughter grew louder. Alexander turned away, smirking as he muttered, "Dreams are cute, kid, but jets aren't toys." It should have ended there, just another cruel moment in a rich man's day. But then she said something that froze him mid-step. "I'm not asking for a toy, sir. I'm asking for a chance." Something in her voice, its unshakable belief, its raw hunger, cut through the cold air and landed straight in his chest. For a brief second, he saw himself, not the billionaire, but the boy he once was. The one who had grown up in a broken house in Detroit, mocked for being poor, told he'd never amount to anything. He had built walls so high that even he forgot what was behind them. And now, this little girl was knocking on them without fear. The journalists waited for his response, eager for a quote. He could have ignored her, walked away, kept his dignity and his distance. But instead, something reckless and unfamiliar stirred inside him, curiosity. He tilted his head, smirking slightly. "All right, little pilot," he said into the microphone, his tone dripping with arrogance but his eyes oddly uncertain. "Fly this jet and I'll adopt you." The crowd gasped. Reporters burst into questions. Security moved forward. But Aaliyah just blinked up at him, confused. "What?" she asked softly. He shrugged. "You heard me. If you can fly my jet, even a little, I'll sign the papers myself." The audience roared with laughter, thinking it was a joke, a billionaire's cruel whim. But Aaliyah didn't laugh. She stepped forward. "Then show me how," she said. The moment hung in the air like static before a storm. Alexander felt something shift inside him, amusement giving way to unease. He had expected tears, retreat, embarrassment. Instead, this tiny girl looked at him like she believed him. Like she believed in herself. And for the first time in years, he felt small before another person. He cleared his throat. "You can't just walk into a jet and," but she interrupted, "then teach me." You said if I fly it, you'll adopt me. I don't need charity, sir. I just need someone to believe I can. Silence. Even the cameras went still. His PR manager tugged his sleeve, whispering, "Sir, this is going off script." But he waved her off. Something deep, buried, maybe even broken, told him to see where this went. "Fine," he said finally, his voice lower now, almost human. "Come here." As she walked toward him, the crowd parted like the sea, some sneering, some smiling, most just stunned. She climbed the stairs into the jet beside him, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. Inside, everything gleamed: chrome, glass, screens, buttons, a world she'd only ever seen in pictures. Alexander watched her touch the controls with reverence, the way a believer might touch an altar. He showed her the yoke, the throttle, the flight display, explaining in clipped tones how the systems worked. But the longer he spoke, the quieter his voice became. Because she wasn't just listening, she was absorbing. Her questions were sharp, her focus absolute. After 20 minutes, she could name every part of the cockpit. "You've got a mind for this," he murmured. She smiled faintly. "Mama always said the sky listens to brave people." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He didn't know why, but they did. He asked where her mother was. Her answer was soft, matter of fact. She went up to the sky too. Something cracked inside him then, something that had been frozen for years. He excused himself, walked to the cockpit door, and just stood there, staring at his reflection in the polished glass. For the first time, he hated what he saw. A man who mocked dreams because he was too afraid to have any left. When he came back, he said quietly, "You ready?" Aaliyah nodded, her small hands trembling on the controls. "All right," he said, settling beside her. "We'll taxi forward, no takeoff. Just get a feel for it." But when the engines roared to life and the jet began to roll, something miraculous happened. She moved with perfect instinct, following his every instruction as if she'd been born to do it. The jet glided along the runway, smooth, steady. The engineers watching from below started cheering. Reporters lifted their cameras. Alexander couldn't stop staring at her. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't pretending. She was flying. When they stopped, the air inside the cabin felt electric. He turned to her and said softly, "You did it." She grinned. "So, you'll adopt me?" She asked, half joking, half hopeful. The question hit him like thunder. He opened his mouth, and couldn't speak. Because he realized he wasn't joking anymore. In the following days, news of the mocking billionaire and the fearless foster girl went viral. Some called it a stunt. Others called it magic. But what mattered was that something inside Alexander had changed completely. He visited the foster home where Aaliyah lived, this time without cameras. He watched her helping the younger kids with homework, telling them, "Don't worry, we're all gonna fly someday." He realized then that she wasn't just asking to be adopted, she was asking to belong. And deep down, so was he. The paperwork took weeks, but when it was done, Alexander found himself standing outside the courthouse with Aaliyah holding his hand, her smile brighter than sunlight on steel. "You sure about this, kid?" he teased gently. She looked up at him and said, "I was sure the moment you said I could fly." Tears stung his eyes, the kind that come not from pain, but from finding the missing piece of your own heart. Months passed. Aaliyah's room in the mansion was filled with airplane models, her drawings framed on the walls. She started attending a flight school for youth, sponsored by the very man who once mocked her. Alexander watched every lesson, sometimes from afar, sometimes right beside her. And on her 13th birthday, he took her back to that same jet, now bearing a name painted across its side in cursive silver letters, Aaliyah's Sky. He handed her the co-pilot headset. "Ready, Captain?" he asked. She giggled. "You mean, Dad?" The word hung between them, small, soft, and everything. They took off together that day, soaring over the city, the clouds glowing gold beneath them. Alexander looked at her, his daughter now, and thought of how strange life was. He had built an empire chasing altitude, yet he'd never truly learned how to fly until that little girl taught him how. As they broke through the clouds, Aaliyah looked out the window and whispered, "Mama, we made it." Alexander swallowed the lump in his throat and reached over, squeezing her hand. "Yeah," he whispered back. "We really did." From that day on, his company changed. The Cole Foundation for Aviation Dreams was born, offering scholarships for underprivileged kids who wanted to become pilots, engineers, or dreamers. But whenever reporters asked him why, he never mentioned the press or the profits. He simply smiled and said, "Because once, a little girl reminded me that the sky belongs to everyone." And every year after that, on the anniversary of the day they met, Alexander and Aaliyah would return to that airfield. She would fly the same jet, no longer as a challenge but as a promise. And every takeoff was more than flight. It was faith. It was family. It was proof that sometimes, the most broken souls don't need wings, they just need someone to believe they can soar. Sparkle's moral: true wealth isn't found in what we own, but in the hearts we lift. Because kindness, even when it starts as a joke, can change not just one life, but two.